Undoubtedly, one of Earth's greatest minds here.
7 worst pre-MCU Marvel movies that are so bad they should be left in the VHS bin.
Mr. President! Thanks.
The Marvel movies we know today, the ones we so excitedly watch and wait for, weren't always like this. There was a darker era to Marvel, and no, not genre-wise, just a series of really badly produced films, with shoddy scripts, poorly done effects, and terrible acting. Some of these titles are now popular superhero films known in world cinema. However, older Marvel films, the ones somewhere in the 1970s and after, truly got left behind in that era. No one talks about them anymore. In fact, not everyone is even aware of their existence. In this video, we'll take you through the 7 most terrible Marvel movies from the pre-MCU era. But before we begin, we request you to subscribe to us. It may be a small click from you, but it goes a long way for us. Let's begin, shall we?
It's a bird! It's a plane! No! It's a duck!
Number 1, Howard the Duck, 1986.
Not bad for a duck from outer space.
A science experiment gone wrong unknowingly brings extraterrestrial life forms to Earth with the help of a laser beam. And that's how Howard the Duck came to Earth. He's a carefree duck, the size of a human, who spends his days smoking and drinking. He also is a protagonist of the film, as the title suggests. Soon after his arrival, he befriends Beverly Switzer after he saves her from a group of thugs. Eventually, the government finds out about Howard, but Beverly helps Phil and Dr. Jennings, the 2 people responsible for the chaos, hide the duck until they can find a way to get him back to his universe safely. The government isn't the only problem because, through the laser beam, an evil being also arrived on Earth and took over Dr. Jennings' body. Now, they must come together to stop this villain, known as Dark Overlord.
But you people are animals! He's my boyfriend!
It truly is a film that is so bad, it's almost good. One might not necessarily watch it for the plot, or the script, or even the cast, but because it's one of those films you simply have to put on your bad film list, the kind you can slide into a conversation at a dinner party. It takes a while for the film to pick up its pace and find some momentum. However, that still isn't enough for it to be a success. It was a box office failure in 1986, and maybe the world just wasn't ready for a talking duck that was the size of a human.
3 minutes.
Number 2, The Punisher, 1989.
Have you already said to the world, here is justice, here is punishment, here?
This film is based on the infamous Marvel comic character and revolves around Frank Castle, an ex-cop. Frank's family was assassinated about 5 years ago. The loss of his wife and kids led him to take the role of a ruthless vigilante named the Punisher. The city is filled with crimes that go unpunished, mostly by mobsters who have infiltrated the locality, but things get more serious, and people get more concerned when the Punisher kills 125 criminals. Finally, Johnny Franco, one of the mobsters, comes in to take control of the situation and bring all the families together, but this doesn't go unnoticed. Franco's actions catch the attention of Yakuza, Asia's largest crime syndicate. After the events unfold, the Punisher has to fight Yakuza to save the lives of some kidnapped children, but he has to work alongside the people who were the cause of the death of his own family. The Punisher didn't go amazingly at the box office, nor did it garner many fans by the end of the film, but it could very easily be classified as a cult classic, at least in the Marvel sphere as a whole. It was a gripping story about one man's revenge. While he couldn't get his family back, he could at least punish those who were the reason they were gone. Despite it being an action film, it wasn't as exciting and, frankly, quite boring. It wasn't a memorable film, which could be because of the dull acting, or maybe because of the direction, but for an action film, it was deeply unsatisfying, but at least Dolph Lundgren did most of his stunts on his own.
Emerging whenever anger.
Number 3, The Trial of Incredible Hulk, 1989.
In each of us, there lives a kind of beast made of rage.
I try to keep the beast caged within myself.
David Banner, who now goes by David Belson, has no intention of turning into the Hulk and creating trouble. He wants to lay low and go about his life, but things don't go as planned when he is wrongfully accused of a crime he didn't commit. While awaiting trial, defense attorney Matt Murdock is assigned to his case, who is convinced that David is innocent and is determined to prove so. However, the stress of turning into the Hulk in front of a jury and a judge causes David to actually transform and unintentionally break out of his prison cell. Eventually, Daredevil, the man who protects the city, reveals his identity as Matt Murdock, who learns David's secret, hence gaining each other's trust. Matt and David go on to help each other, while also trying to fight the underworld criminal, Wilson Fisk. This film will always be remembered in the history of Marvel, as it has Stan Lee's first ever cameo appearance in a Marvel comic-based film, which later went on to become a very important tradition in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Trial of Incredible Hulk is one of the better films of this collection, despite it being older than some of them, and it's all because of the characters. This film gives us the first live-action look at Daredevil, and his interactions with David are enjoyable, and the friendship between them is heartwarming and makes this film definitely worth a watch. The only glaring flaw was, despite the title of the film, we don't really see a lot of the Incredible Hulk. The Green Monster was robbed screen time. Number 4, Doctor Strange, 1978.
Will I be asked to give up even love?
The universe is love, that you shall have.
The very beginning of the movie introduces its main villain, a sorceress, Morgan Le Fay, played by Jessica Walter. She has been trapped in the underworld for the last hundreds of years, serving a god who gives her 3 days to complete a task. She has to defeat the Sorcerer Supreme, Thomas Lindmere, played by John Mills. While subsequent events take place, we learn that psychiatrist Dr. Stephen Stranger is next in line to be the Sorcerer Supreme, but he is completely unaware of the fact and his destiny. Le Fay possesses the body of a young woman named Clea Lake and tries to attack Lindmere, failing miserably when he survives with the help of his magic. As a result of the attack, Clea is traumatized and ends up at the hospital, where she is treated by none other than Dr. Stephen Strange, who is still blissfully unaware of what's to come. This was a TV movie that required its audience to have lower expectations, and given the fact that it was a science fiction film from the 1970s, one shouldn't expect it to have stellar special effects or CGI. Keeping that aside, it was an average film, with an above-average cast and below-average script. This film is most likely to appeal to those who are invested in the Marvel comic books, as it pays homage to one of the most beloved characters. The lack of well-developed graphics for a plot that demanded it left it undercooked and raw, but those who wanted to consume it did so, and happily too. For a TV pilot, it did its best, and maybe if it had continued, the pacing and directorial style would have made more sense, but alas, that didn't happen. Number 5, Captain America, 1990.
Mr. President! Thanks.
What was originally supposed to be a fascist super soldier in Italy in 1936 changed course after Dr. Vicelli fled to America to serve the Americans. In 1943, the American government finally finds its ideal volunteer for an experiment, Steve Rogers. He was skinny, frail, but he was a soldier nonetheless, and one with a lot of heart and drive to do something for his country, and when the opportunity presented itself, he became an American super soldier. But the experiment comes to a halt when Dr. Vicelli is killed by a Nazi. Meanwhile, Steve Rogers, who is now Captain America, has to defeat Red Skull, but things go south, and instead of defeating him, Steve Rogers is buried in ice, somewhere in Alaska, with a missile attached to him. Fast forward to 50 years later, a group of researchers find Steve's body, and he wakes up thinking he's still in the 1940s, and once and for all, he finds his purpose. Red Skull must be defeated by the hands of Captain America. Captain America ranks 74th on IMDb's lowest-rated films of all time, with a score of 3.7, and one would think that is enough indication of how bad this film was, but it is only the tip of the iceberg and not the kind Steve Rogers was frozen under. While the first half of the film wasn't a disaster, the second half didn't help in making it any better. Matt Salinger wasn't built to play a superhero. His portrayal of Captain America lacked the zest and gusto that the audience was looking for. Another addition to the list of films that you have to watch just because of how bad they are. Number 6, Generation X, 1996.
What am I supposed to say? Hey Mom, I think I'm a mutant, but don't worry, I'll study harder.
The story revolves around a bunch of teenagers who have been gifted with superhuman powers. These teenagers have been classified as mutants and aren't accepted by society. People either fear them or hate them. They're outcasts in their own world. They attend a very small and private school called Xavier's School for Gifted Students, which is exclusively for mutants. In fact, the two teachers are also adult mutants. One of them is Emma Frost, or the White Queen, and the other is Sean Cassidy, or Banshee. All is well until Russell Tresh, a mad scientist who is out to hunt the mutants for his experiments and advancements, finds out about the school. What makes matters worse is Emma Frost is an old nemesis, which only gives him more incentive as he kidnaps the mutant teenagers for his experiments.
Russell, Right. Now let's go pick a fight.
While the actors performed to the best of their ability, they didn't have a good enough script to back their performance. The story was complex enough to make it a little confusing for the audience, and maybe if the writers and directors had taken a simpler route, it would have ended differently.
Right.
For a TV film, it wasn't the worst attempt, but neither was it the best, or even close to it, especially when we compare it to the beloved X-Men films that we love today. While it might not be something to write home about, it sets a foundation of some sort of the future of X-Men in Marvel.
Look at you.
Number 7, The Fantastic Four, 1994.
What kind of a thing have I turned into?
4 people and their lives are forever changed when they get bombarded with cosmic rays after an accident occurs. Reed Richards turns into Elastic, popularly known as Mr. Fantastic. Along with him, his girlfriend, Sue Storm, is the Invisible Girl. Sue's chaotic younger brother, Johnny Storm, is hot, quite literally, as the Human Torch. Lastly, Ben Grimm's The Thing turns into a rocky mass of muscles. Together, they form a team of superheroes and call themselves the Fantastic Four. They are eventually captured by men and taken to the infamous villain, Dr. Doom, and after a series of events that unfold, Doom threatens to destroy New York City unless they surrender to him. The four realize that they're going to have to defeat Doom to save the city. Determined to do so, they come together, battling evil and defeating Dr. Doom. Stan Lee, the creator of everything that surrounds Marvel, admitted in an interview with Kevin Smith,
"It wasn't supposed to. That movie was made just so that somebody wouldn't lose the rights to make the real movie later."
They had an option.
And maybe it should have stayed that way. Fantastic Four had far too much to achieve in terms of CGI, and it simply didn't come through as well as it should have, but it was 1994, and maybe for that era, it wasn't as shabby, especially since it was a low-budget film. The film stays true to the comic book, while also delivering a light and entertaining performance through most of the film. It wasn't boring, it wasn't the worst Marvel film made, and it deserves to be seen at least once despite its glaring flaws. On a brighter note, this film makes the future Fantastic Four films seem miles and miles better.
Think this is just a little too easy, huh?
That was all in this video. Do hang around for more awesome content on everything that's movies, comics, and TV. Stay safe and have a good one.